The little moments. It's the little moments. That's what makes the job worth it. 'Cause the pay certainly isn't worth it. Neither are the long hours, my aching feet after a long shift, my sore back from lifting and moving residents. It's worth it for the moments when Georgia told me that I'm a daughter to her. Can you imagine a greater honour? Georgia had a rough time initially in the home. A lot of confusion and worry about where she was due to her dementia. It was heartbreaking for her to be living apart from her family, but it was also needed. The family just couldn't cope anymore. When the pandemic hit, we, the care staff, weren't prepared. It was awful. Not enough PPE, staff off work sick, a ban on family visits, our residents lonely and stuck indoors. And then the deaths, residents and staff too. And of course, amidst the chaos of COVID, our activities suffered. Lockdown prevented us from doing our usual programme. I didn't feel creative or inspired. I was exhausted, stressed, and overwhelmed. Then Culture Box arrived. We received the first box in December 2020. I remember because it was just before Christmas. It really took the pressure off. Everything we needed was in that box. During the first session, we sat together and made snowmen out of socks. One resident, Linda, didn't like the idea of making snowman, so she made a sock puppet called Samantha instead. We had such a giggle at Samantha's big eyes and giant smile. That day, it felt as if the home had come back to life somehow. What do you think of when you imagine life in a care home? Frailty? Lifelessness? Death? Our care home was full of laughter, of community. It was full of love. But during COVID, all of that was worn down. The home just went silent. We ran out of ideas. We stopped coming up with projects. We just didn't have it in us anymore. But then the laughter started coming back when each month we'd receive one of the boxes. Every box was full of really inspiring ideas to try out and unexpected things for us to talk about together. We found things out about each other that normally just wouldn't come up in conversation. I remember Dabir talking about his life in Somalia. Julia spoke about her trips around the globe. We reminisced about the past, about the good times, about life before all of this. Everyone would be so keen each month for the box to come in the post. I remember one month I'd finally been able to take some time off. Bliss. I thought, 2 weeks to myself, finally. But what happened was the box arrived and sat unopened because I was away. They waited. They didn't want to open it without me. So yeah, the boxes really helped bring life to the care home. We'd spend afternoons with everything laid out on the table, sitting around together, sharing stories, colouring, making, joy filling the room. But there were additional pressures on me as the activity coordinator. I'm responsible for organising entertainment, mainly to adapt the projects to each person. This is what we call a person-centred approach. And while it's best practice, it can take its toll, having to deal with the frustration and negative emotion that comes with someone struggling with a colouring exercise, for example. But maybe these moments were important too, giving me a chance to bond with the residents, going from frustration to laughter as we tried out different ways of holding a pencil and different ways of drawing. I miss those moments, I really do. But in the end, they were the sticking plaster, the moments that kept me going, kept me from leaving, kept me carrying on despite the low pay and the back-breaking work. Eventually, that stickiness just wore away, and that's when I left. I left Dabir, I left Linda.